I never thought I'd remember a wedding for all the wrong reasons, but my sister's big day turned out to be a lesson I'll never forget. It was supposed to be a celebration of love, family, and happiness. Instead, it became a mirror showing me exactly where I stood in the eyes of the people I called my own. The day started out like any other wedding morning, sunlight streaming through the curtains, the faint smell of coffee drifting through my apartment, and my phone buzzing nonstop with messages from my mom reminding me not to be late. "Don't forget, family photos start at 2 sharp," she wrote. "And please, Emily, try to look decent. It's a big day for your sister." That last part stung more than I wanted to admit. Try to look decent? As if I ever showed up looking like I'd just rolled out of bed. But I didn't respond. I'd learned by now that silence was easier than confrontation. As I pulled on my dress, a simple navy blue piece I'd bought on sale a few weeks earlier, I caught myself staring in the mirror a little too long. There was a time when my mom would have fussed over my hair, told me I looked beautiful, maybe even helped me zip the back. But those days were gone. Somewhere between my sister Lauren's engagement announcement and now, I'd become invisible. Lauren was the golden child, the one who did everything right. She was a nurse, engaged to a dentist, owned a small house in the suburbs, and had a wedding Pinterest board that could make Martha Stewart jealous. Meanwhile, I was the one who'd taken too long to finish school, didn't settle down, and worked too much. That was the thing about my family. They loved to measure success with a ruler made entirely of comparison. The drive to the venue was quiet. I didn't have a date beside me, and for some reason that fact felt heavier than usual. I wasn't single because I couldn't find someone. I was single because I refused to settle for someone who treated me like an accessory. But try explaining that to a family that measured your worth by whether or not you had someone's last name attached to yours. When I pulled up to the chapel, cars lined the street. Expensive ones, shiny ones, the kind that made my little Toyota Corolla look like a toy car. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, the sound of my heels clicking against the pavement echoing in the afternoon air. The first person I saw when I entered was my Aunt Carol, who'd never missed a chance to remind me how different I was. "Oh, Emily," she said with a sharp smile, "you came alone?" I forced a polite smile. "Yeah, it's just me today." Her eyes flicked up and down my outfit before she replied, "Well, at least you made it." That tone, half pity, half judgment, was her signature. I brushed it off and found my seat, but it didn't take long before the whispers started. I could feel them, those sideways glances from cousins, the smirks from distant relatives who didn't even know my last job title, but sure knew I was still single. Then came the real punch. When I walked up to greet my parents, my mom gave me a quick once-over and whispered, "You couldn't have found someone to bring? Even a friend?" I almost laughed. The irony of it all. "I'm fine, Mom," I said quietly. "It's just a wedding." But she sighed like my words had somehow ruined the decor. "You know how people talk, Emily," she said. "I just didn't want you to feel left out." Translation: You're embarrassing me. When the ceremony started, Lauren looked radiant. I couldn't deny it. Her dress shimmered in the sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows, her smile genuine, her joy contagious. For a second, I forgot everything. The tension, the comparisons, the invisible wall that had grown between us. She looked happy, and despite everything, that made me happy too. But the warmth didn't last long. At the reception, the DJ announced that couples should take the dance floor first. The newlyweds swayed in the center, surrounded by laughter and flashing cameras. Then came the rest, my cousins with their partners, my friends from childhood who now had kids of their own, even my parents dancing cheek to cheek. And there I was, alone at the edge of the floor, holding a glass of champagne that had already gone flat. I tried to smile through it, but the laughter around me felt louder, sharper. Someone at the next table, probably one of Lauren's friends, snickered and said, "She's still solo?" Poor thing. I pretended not to hear. Then it happened. The DJ, who must have thought he was hilarious, shouted into the mic, "All right, folks. Let's get all the couples out here for a love circle. And if you're single, well, grab a chair, because this one's not for you." The whole room erupted in laughter. My family laughed the hardest. My mom actually covered her mouth to hide it, but I saw her shoulders shaking. Even Lauren giggled from across the room, her new husband whispering something in her ear. And in that moment, the sting turned into something else, something colder, sharper. I smiled. Not out of joy, but out of realization. They thought they were laughing at me, but someday I knew they'd choke on that laughter. Because I was done being their punchline. I was done being the quiet, invisible one who just took it. I didn't know how yet, but deep down, I felt it building, the day I'd walk into their lives again, not as the lonely sister, but as the one they'd regret ever underestimating. If you've ever been made to feel small at someone else's perfect moment, keep watching. What happens next will make you believe that sometimes being underestimated is your greatest weapon. The laughter still echoed in my ears long after the music changed. I tried to play it off, pretending to scroll through my phone, but my fingers were shaking. Every chuckle felt like a spotlight, and no matter how much I told myself to let it go, it burned deep. It wasn't just that they laughed, it was who laughed. My family. The people who were supposed to protect me, not mock me. I excused myself from the table and walked toward the back patio where the air was cooler and quieter. The hum of laughter faded behind the glass doors, replaced by the soft buzz of crickets and distant chatter. I leaned on the railing, staring at the garden lights strung across the trees. I wasn't angry yet. Just hollow. That kind of empty you only feel when you realize the people you've loved most never really saw you at all. For years, I'd told myself I was fine with being different. The single one, the workaholic, the one who didn't follow the family blueprint. But tonight made me see how deep their judgment ran. They didn't just think I was different. They thought I was less. Behind me, I heard the door slide open. I turned and saw Lauren, holding up her wedding dress slightly so it wouldn't drag through the dirt. "There you are," she said with a soft laugh. "Mom was wondering where you went. You disappeared right when Dad was about to do his toast." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her. Perfect hair, glowing skin, the kind of confidence that comes from being adored. "I just needed some air," I finally said. She smiled, taking a sip of champagne. "You okay? You looked a little upset earlier." I almost told her everything. How embarrassed I felt. How their laughter hurt more than she could imagine. But then she added, with that innocent tone only she could pull off, "Oh, and don't mind the jokes. You know how people get at weddings. They just tease because they love you." I let out a small laugh that didn't reach my eyes. "Yeah, love me." She didn't notice the sarcasm. "Anyway," she said, looking out at the lights, "you'll find someone soon. You just need to put yourself out there. Maybe then, at my next big event, you won't be alone." That did it. I felt something crack inside me with a silent final break. "Thanks, Lauren," I said flatly. "But not everyone's biggest goal is to be someone's plus one." Her smile faltered, just slightly. "You don't have to take it like that. I was just trying to help." "I know," I said, walking past her toward the door. That's the problem. The rest of the night blurred together. The toasts, the cake cutting, the first dance. I was there physically, but mentally I was somewhere else entirely. I kept thinking about all the times I'd been laughed at, ignored, or brushed aside in this family. How every achievement of mine was met with silence, while Lauren's smallest victories were celebrated like national holidays. I'd graduated with honors, landed a great job, even bought my own apartment at 24. But none of that mattered because I wasn't wearing a ring. When the wedding finally ended and guests started leaving, I grabbed my small purse and made my way toward the parking lot. I was about to unlock my car when I heard my dad's voice behind me. Leaving without saying goodbye? I froze. He walked up, his tie loosened, the faint smell of whiskey clinging to him. "You know your mother's upset," he said. "She thinks you were rude to your sister." "Rude?" I turned to face him. "For existing alone?" He sighed heavily. "You're reading too much into things, Emily. You've always been so sensitive." I felt my chest tighten. "You laughed too, Dad." He blinked, caught off guard. "What?" When the DJ said that thing about single people. "You laughed. You thought it was funny." He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "It was just a joke." I stared at him for a long second. Right, just a joke. Without another word, I got in my car and drove off. The laughter still rang in my ears, and by the time I got home, it had turned into fuel. I sat on my bed, still in my dress, and opened my laptop. I didn't know what I was looking for, but my mind was spinning with determination. I didn't want revenge in the petty sense. I wanted transformation. The kind that made people rethink how they ever saw you. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to fade into the background anymore. No more shrinking myself just to make them comfortable. If they saw me as a failure, then I'd make sure my failure was impossible to ignore. I spent the next few months focusing on myself like never before. I took on new projects at work, learned new skills, started networking like crazy. I even launched a small online business idea I'd been toying with for years, designing affordable event decor for small weddings and community celebrations. The irony wasn't lost on me, turning their world of picture-perfect weddings into something I could control, something mine. At first, it was slow. Orders trickled in. I worked late nights, answered emails between meetings, barely slept. But the work gave me purpose, something deeper than family approval. And then one morning, I woke up to find my Etsy shop flooded with orders. One of my designs had gone viral on Pinterest. The notifications were endless. Influencers were tagging my business, and emails were pouring in from wedding planners across the country. Within 6 months, my side hustle turned into a full-time company. I quit my job. I signed a lease for a small office space. My business was officially real, Carter and Bloom Designs. I hired 2 assistants and a photographer. My social media started blowing up, and for the first time in my life, people weren't laughing. They were applauding, but the real twist. My family still had no idea. They hadn't asked how I was, hadn't checked in since the wedding. And that was fine, because when they did find out, it wouldn't be through a phone call or a family dinner. It would be through something much bigger. If you think Emily's story is about to cool down, think again. What comes next will flip the entire family dynamic upside down. 6 months after the wedding, I was standing in a sunlit office surrounded by bolts of fabric, boxes of ribbon, and the faint smell of fresh coffee. It was surreal. Just half a year earlier, I'd been that awkward girl at the edge of the dance floor, pretending not to care while my family laughed. Now I had clients waiting weeks for consultations, brides flying in from other states just to meet with me, and a growing team that believed in my vision even when my own family never had. My company, Carter and Bloom Designs, wasn't just doing well, it was thriving. Every morning, I'd walk into my office with a quiet kind of pride. My logo was etched in gold on the glass door, sunlight catching on the letters as if to remind me that everything I'd built was real. Sometimes when I stayed late to finish orders, I'd think about that wedding night and smile to myself. Not out of spite, but because I had finally found peace in being my own source of validation. But peace has a funny way of being tested. One afternoon, I was sorting through emails when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Clients usually texted or emailed first, but something in me hesitated and I picked up. Hello? Emily? The voice was familiar, hesitant. It's Lauren. For a second, my stomach tightened. I hadn't heard from her since the wedding. Oh, hey, I said, trying to sound casual. How have you been? She asked. I've been good. Busy. She hesitated, then said, Listen, I know things were a little weird at the wedding. I wanted to reach out sooner, but, life's been crazy. I almost laughed at the irony. Life had been crazy for me too, but in a completely different way. Yeah, I get it, I said. Well, she continued, that's actually why I'm calling. We're planning a big event, a vow renewal for me and Jake next spring. It's going to be kind of a big deal. Mom and Dad are helping us plan it, and, She trailed off, then added, We were hoping you might help with the decor. I froze, staring at my computer screen. You want me to work your event? Well, yeah, she said quickly. I mean, I know you've been doing something with weddings or events. Mom mentioned she saw a post online. You're so creative, Em. I figured this could be a great way for us to reconnect, Like old times. I bit back a bitter smile. Old times were when she got everything handed to her, while I was told to clap quietly from the sidelines. Sure, I said finally. I'd love to take a look at your plans. Send me the details, and I'll let you know what I can do. When I hung up, I sat there for a moment, processing. Part of me wanted to decline, to tell her I was too busy. But another part, the quiet, determined part, knew this was my moment. Not for revenge. For revelation. A week later, Lauren and Jake came by my office for a consultation. The look on her face when she walked in was priceless. Wow, she said, eyes wide as she glanced around the space. This is yours? Every inch of it, I said, smiling. Jake shook my hand, polite but clearly surprised. This is impressive. We didn't realize how big your business had gotten. It's grown fast, I said. We're actually booked out for months. Lauren blinked, caught off guard. Really? That's amazing, she paused, her voice softening. I'm proud of you, Em. For the first time in years, I believed she meant it. But still, a small part of me remembered that laughter. The way she'd stood there while everyone joked at my expense. The way she hadn't said a word. We went through color schemes, floral arrangements, layout plans, the usual. But what made me pause wasn't the event details. It was how easily she assumed I'd be available. "So," she said near the end, "you'll do it, right? Family discount and all?" I looked at her, expression unreadable. "Lauren, I'd love to help. But I don't do discounts anymore. Not even for family," her smile faltered. "Oh, I just thought—" "You thought wrong," I said gently but firmly. "What I do takes time and value. You'll get my best work, but I expect to be treated like any other professional." Jake shifted uncomfortably, but Lauren nodded after a pause. "You're right, of course. Send us your quote." When they left, I felt a strange mix of pride and peace. I'd stood my ground, calmly, confidently, without apology. And as I watched their car pull away, I realized something even bigger. They'd finally seen me. Not as the awkward single sister, not as the family disappointment, but as a woman who built something real on her own. A few weeks later, I sent them the proposal. Professional, detailed, full price. They accepted without argument. Maybe guilt played a part. Maybe respect. Either way, it felt good. As the event planning began, my team and I went all out. I designed custom floral arches, personalized centerpieces, and a breathtaking photo backdrop that turned the entire venue into something magical. Every piece had my signature touch. Elegant, thoughtful, modern. Word spread quickly, and soon other clients started calling, asking if I could do for them what I was doing for that big vow renewal downtown. What they didn't know, what Lauren didn't know, was that a major lifestyle magazine had reached out to me just a week earlier. They wanted to feature Carter & Bloom as one of the fastest-growing women-led design companies in the Midwest. The article would go live just a few days before Lauren's event. I didn't plan it that way, but when I saw the timing, I couldn't help but smile. The universe had a sense of poetic justice, because when that article dropped, and my family saw my name, my face, and my story on the front page of Modern Home and Life, every person who had ever laughed at me would have no choice but to realize the punchline had changed. You might think Emily's story is peaking now, but just wait until you see what happens when her family finally realizes who she's become. Part 4 will leave you speechless. The article came out on a chilly Thursday morning in March. I remember because I was sitting by my kitchen window sipping coffee when my phone started buzzing nonstop. At first, I thought something was wrong, maybe a client emergency or a last-minute cancellation. But when I opened the first message, my breath caught in my throat. It was a screenshot of Modern Home and Life magazine, with the headline splashed across the top. From Wedding Outcast to Design Powerhouse, how Emily Carter built a brand that redefined elegance. My photo was right there on the cover, me standing confidently in my studio, surrounded by flowers and fabric samples, a soft smile on my face. The messages poured in one after another. Old classmates, distant relatives, even people who used to barely acknowledge me were suddenly reaching out. "So proud of you. You deserve this. Didn't know you were doing so well." I didn't even know what to say. I just sat there staring at my own name printed in bold, realizing how far I'd come. The article told my story in a way no one in my family ever had. Not as the awkward girl who showed up to her sister's wedding alone, but as the woman who turned that humiliation into her greatest motivation. Later that day, my mom called. I hesitated before answering, unsure what kind of tone to expect. But when I picked up, her voice sounded softer than I'd heard in years. "Emily, sweetheart. I saw the magazine, yeah?" I asked, keeping my tone even. I just wanted to say. She paused as if swallowing pride. "I'm proud of you. Your father is too." For a moment, I didn't trust myself to speak. "Thanks, Mom," I finally said. "You've really made something special," she continued. "Lauren showed it to everyone. She said you're doing her event, right? That's so wonderful. I always knew you'd find your place." That line made me smile, bittersweetly. No, she hadn't always known. None of them had. But maybe for the first time, they were seeing me for who I really was. 2 days later, Lauren's vow renewal took place. It was being held at a grand lakeside venue, the kind of place people booked a year in advance. My team and I had spent weeks transforming the space. The floral arches shimmered under soft lights. The aisle glowed with lanterns, and the tables looked like something out of a dream. Everything was perfect. And this time, I wasn't standing in the background watching someone else's moment. I was the one who made it happen. When I arrived at the event to make the final checks, I saw my parents talking to a group of guests near the entrance. My mom waved me over. "Everyone," she said proudly. "This is my daughter Emily. She's the designer behind all of this." For a split second, I froze. My mom had never introduced me that way before. I smiled, shaking hands as people complimented the decor. "You did all this?" "It's stunning," one woman said. "Thank you," I replied, feeling a warmth spread through my chest. Lauren appeared then, radiant in her white gown. She looked beautiful, genuinely happy. "Emily," she said, walking over and hugging me. "You've outdone yourself." "It's perfect." I hugged her back, surprised by how easy it felt. "I'm glad you love it." When the ceremony began, I stood off to the side with my team, watching the guests settle in. Everything ran smoothly, not a single detail out of place. As the evening went on, people kept stopping by our setup area, asking for business cards, complimenting our work. My assistant whispered, "You're going to need a bigger team after this." I laughed softly. "Yeah, maybe." But the most unexpected moment came during dinner. My dad walked up to me, holding a glass of wine. He's not a man of many words, but when he spoke, his voice had a weight to it. "You did good, kiddo," he said quietly. "I owe you an apology." I looked at him, taken aback. "For what?" "For not seeing you sooner. For letting everyone laugh that night and saying nothing. You didn't deserve that." My throat tightened. "Thanks, Dad," I said, barely managing a smile. "That means more than you know." He nodded, eyes misty. "You showed them all." "You showed me too." Later, as I was helping my team pack up, Lauren came over again. "Hey," she said, "I was thinking, maybe we could do lunch sometime? Just you and me. I miss having my sister around." There was a long silence between us. Not awkward, just real. "I'd like that," I finally said. Driving home that night, I rolled down the window and let the cool air wash over me. The city lights blurred past, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was chasing approval or trying to prove something. I'd already done it, quietly, beautifully, and on my own terms. But what I didn't know then was that this night, this perfect, full circle moment, was only the beginning of a twist I never saw coming. Because just a few weeks later, a family secret would come to light. One that would change everything I thought I knew about my sister, my parents, and myself. And when that truth finally comes out, it won't just shake Emily's world. It'll rewrite her entire past. Part 5 will reveal the secret that turns love, loyalty, and family upside down. A few weeks passed after the vow renewal, and life started to feel steady again. Business was booming, my confidence had never been higher, and for the first time in years, my parents were calling just to check in, not to compare me to Lauren or remind me of family obligations. It felt like peace, the kind of peace I'd spent years chasing. But peace, as I've learned, doesn't last long when secrets are buried deep. It started with a phone call from a lawyer's office. I was in the middle of reviewing color palettes for a client when an unknown number flashed across my screen. Normally, I would have ignored it, but something in me decided to answer. "Hello, this is Emily Carter," I said, half distracted. "Good afternoon, Ms. Carter," a firm voice replied. "This is Daniel Moore from the firm of Moore & Klein. We're handling the estate of a Mrs. Margaret Holloway." My brow furrowed. "I'm sorry, I don't think I know anyone by that name." He paused before continuing. "Actually, you do. Mrs. Holloway listed you and your sister Lauren Bennett as beneficiaries in her will. Would you be available to come by the office this week to discuss the matter?" For a moment, I was silent. The name meant nothing to me, but curiosity got the better of me. "Sure," I said finally. "I can come in tomorrow." The next day, I drove downtown, wondering who this mysterious woman was. The office was sleek and quiet, the kind of place where every clock ticked in unison. When the lawyer ushered me into a small conference room, I was surprised to see Lauren already there. She looked as puzzled as I felt. "Do you have any idea what this is about?" She whispered. "None," I replied. Moments later, Mr. Moore entered carrying a folder. "Thank you both for coming. I know this must seem unexpected. Mrs. Holloway recently passed away, and she left behind specific instructions regarding the two of you." He handed each of us a letter, neatly folded in cream-colored envelopes. I glanced at mine. The handwriting was elegant and old-fashioned. My heart began to race as I opened it. The first line froze me where I sat. "My dear Emily, you don't know me, but I have known you since the day you were born." I read on, each sentence more shocking than the last. Mrs. Holloway revealed that she had been my biological grandmother, my real grandmother. She explained that my mother had been adopted as a baby, and that she had spent her entire life searching for her lost daughter, my mom. When she finally found her years later, she wanted to meet us, her granddaughters. But my mother refused contact. Tears stung my eyes as I read her final words. "I've followed your life quietly from afar, Emily. I saw your strength, your creativity, your kindness. I leave you a small piece of what I once hoped to give your mother, my old home, and the trust fund that was meant for her. Please use it to build the life you deserve." I looked up, trembling. Lauren's face was pale. This can't be real," she said. The lawyer nodded solemnly. "It's all been verified. Property deeds, DNA confirmation, everything checks out. Mrs. Holloway was indeed your maternal grandmother." Lauren blinked rapidly, struggling to take it in. "But why would Mom never tell us?" That question hung in the air like smoke. Later that night, I drove straight to my parents' house, the letter still clutched in my hand. Mom was in the living room, reading on the couch when I walked in. She looked up, startled. "Emily, what's wrong?" I held up the envelope. "You want to tell me who Margaret Holloway was?" The color drained from her face. "Where did you hear that name?" "From her lawyer," I said sharply. "She died and left me this letter. She says she's your biological mother." Dad came in then, confusion written all over him. "What's going on?" Mom stood up slowly, her hands shaking. "Emily, Lauren, I can explain." "Then do it," I demanded. "Why did you hide her from us? Why didn't we know anything about this?" She took a deep breath, tears already glistening in her eyes. "Because she gave me up. She didn't want me. I was adopted by the Carters when I was 2 weeks old. Years later, she reached out, but by then, I'd already built my life. I didn't want to reopen that wound. But she tried to reconnect with you," I said softly. "She wanted to know us." "I know," Mom whispered. "And maybe I was wrong. But every time I thought about her, I remembered how abandoned I felt. I didn't want that pain near my family." Dad put a hand on her shoulder, but she pulled away, crying quietly. Lauren sat down hard on the sofa, processing everything. "So we had a grandmother who wanted to meet us. And we never even knew?" Mom nodded, ashamed. "She sent letters, birthday cards, even gifts for you girls when you were little. I kept them hidden. I didn't think you needed to know." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You decided that for us?" She looked at me with pleading eyes. "Emily, I was trying to protect you." "From what?" I asked, my voice breaking. "From love? From the truth?" The room fell silent. My heart ached with anger and sadness all at once. I thought about Mrs. Holloway, this woman I'd never met who had quietly watched me grow up, proud of me from afar, when my own mother couldn't even see me. After that night, things changed between us. My parents tried to reach out to explain more, but I needed space. I drove to the old address listed in the letter, Mrs. Holloway's home. It was a charming white house on a hill surrounded by trees and wrapped in stillness. When I stepped inside, it smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. There were photo albums on the shelves, one of which stopped me cold. It was filled with pictures of me, from childhood to adulthood. Photos I didn't even know existed. Some looked like they'd been taken from local papers or online posts, others from afar at school events. She had been there, in the background of my life, quietly loving me. I sat on the floor holding that album, tears spilling down my face. For the first time, I didn't feel invisible anymore. I felt seen, truly seen. I whispered into the empty room, "Thank you, Grandma." But the real reckoning hadn't even started yet. Because when Lauren found out what our grandmother left us, another storm began brewing, one that would test the limits of forgiveness and family all over again. Part 6 will uncover the explosive fallout between the sisters, and how Emily finally decides whether to heal the past or cut ties for good. The days that followed felt like a blur, a strange mix of peace and tension, like calm water hiding a current underneath. My grandmother's house had become my quiet escape. I'd visit every few days, cleaning the place, looking through old boxes, reading her letters. There was something comforting about being surrounded by her memories, even if I never met her. It was as if, in some way, she had been waiting for me all along. But peace rarely lasts when there's money and family involved. A week later, Lauren showed up unannounced at my apartment. She was dressed in her usual style, polished, confident, but her eyes were sharp, restless. I knew immediately this wasn't a social visit. "Hey," I said cautiously, opening the door. She didn't waste a second. "We need to talk about Grandma's inheritance." I sighed, motioning for her to come in. I figured this was coming. "What about it?" She crossed her arms. "You got the house, Emily, and the trust fund. Why didn't she leave anything to me?" I looked at her for a long moment, trying to find the right words. "I don't know, Lauren. Maybe because she felt connected to me. Maybe because she saw something familiar in my life." Her eyes narrowed. "Or maybe you found a way to make her think you deserved more." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Lauren, she passed away before I even knew she existed. You think I somehow manipulated a dead woman's will?" She turned away, pacing. "You always make yourself sound like the victim. But you don't understand what it's like being the one expected to succeed, to make everyone proud." I folded my arms. "No, Lauren. I understand exactly what that's like. You were handed every opportunity. I had to claw my way through everything alone." She stopped and looked at me, her voice trembling. "You think it was easy for me? Being the golden child sounds great until you realize everyone's waiting for you to fail. I was terrified every day that if I slipped up once, I'd stop being their favorite." That was the first time I'd ever heard her sound vulnerable. The tension in the room softened just a little. "Maybe we were both trapped," I said quietly. "Just in different cages." She didn't reply, just looked down at the floor, lost in thought. Finally, she said, "Mom told me she regrets everything. Keeping Grandma a secret, the way she treated you, all of it." "Regret doesn't change what happened," I said, though part of me wanted to believe it could. Lauren sat on the edge of the couch, exhaling deeply. "You know, Grandma actually wrote me a letter too. It wasn't in the lawyer's file. Mom had it. She said Grandma sent it years ago before she died." I blinked. "What did it say?" "She said she hoped we'd take care of each other one day," Lauren whispered. "That family isn't about who's favored. It's about who shows up when it matters." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Lauren looked up, eyes glossy. "I'm sorry for laughing that night. At your expense. It wasn't fair. I guess I was trying to protect myself from my own insecurities." The apology hit harder than I expected. I felt the anger I'd carried for years flicker like a flame finally losing strength. "You hurt me, Lauren," I said softly. "That night made me feel like I didn't belong in my own family." "I know," she said. "And I can't take it back. But I want to make it right." I nodded slowly. "Then start by not competing anymore. I don't need to be better than you, Lauren. I just want to be equal." She smiled faintly. "You already are. Honestly, I think you surpassed me a long time ago." That night, we drove together to Grandma's house. For the first time in years, it felt like sisters again. Not rivals, not strangers. We went through old photos, laughed at how much our mom resembled Grandma when she was young, and cried when we found a small music box labeled "For My Girls." Inside was a tiny note. "No matter what happens, remember, love is louder than pride." We sat there in silence, letting those words sink in. For once, it didn't matter who had what or who had been right. What mattered was that we were finally seeing each other, really seeing each other. Months passed and life continued. I renovated Grandma's house and turned it into my design studio. Every wall, every corner held her presence. Lauren visited often, helping with events and even investing in my business. We rebuilt something our parents never could: trust. When the magazine did a follow-up article titled "Sisters Rebuilt by Legacy," I almost laughed at the irony. We'd gone from public humiliation to public inspiration, and somehow it felt right. The night the article went live, Mom called again. Her voice was warm this time. "Your grandmother would be so proud," she said. "I think she already is," I replied softly. After we hung up, I sat in my studio looking out the window at the city lights. For years, I thought success meant proving people wrong, showing them what they missed when they overlooked me. But standing there, surrounded by everything I'd built, I realized something deeper. It wasn't about revenge. It was about rising, quietly, gracefully, and forgiving myself for the years I thought I wasn't enough. When I closed the lights that night, I whispered into the still air, "Thank you, Grandma," for seeing me before anyone else did, and maybe somewhere beyond time she heard me.